clients and friends. We're talking about the evolution of careers in good times and bad. Our guest is Paul Nazareth, who is the Vice President of Community Engagement at Canada Helps. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks, Pramod.
Well, it's really great to have you on the show. We've known each other for a number of years, and this is our first chance to do an interview like this. Now, Paul, you are an enthusiast for networking. I think everyone who knows you is aware of that. Now, what sort of things can help in the networking process when it comes to a career evolution?
One of the challenges people face is networking in bad times and good times.
Mm-hmm.
And so the bad times is the easier one because people want to leave a job. What they don't realize is that you really need to grow a network before you need it. You'll hear often people say you can't jump out of an airplane and then look for a parachute.
Or dig your well before you're thirsty, that kind of idea.
Mr. McCabe. And so this is where we need to make sure that especially in the good times, we're networking. We're still staying in touch with people. We're being active in professional places. We're using things like LinkedIn to stay relevant and to stay visible so that when a challenge comes, we're ready to move. The network is warmed up. Some people often come to me almost every week. I meet with someone who has been fired or lost their job. Mm-hmm. And that shock hits them and they realize my network is not ready to help me. So mm-hmm. That's why it's really important to stay visible, to make sure that the lightest of touches. That's also why I'm such a big believer in things like social media, which we'll talk about in a bit, because it provides that constant contact with our network.
Okay, now do you find that people generally know that they should be working on their networking when they are working?
Absolutely not.
Or they just don't know?
People find networking exhausting. They don't like doing it. It's because we're taught that networking is that loud thing we do after work at conferences or at professional associations. We're taught the worst kind of networking, and we don't realize that it's really just human connecting. That it's spending time with individuals one-on-one or going to events where we can connect with people we know will be of value to us and will be of value to them. So as long as we do it in a natural way, I often say consistently, quietly. I try to do it almost on a daily basis, either in person or through digital media. But as long as we do it consistently and actually make it not a lot of work, structure it, make it strategic, making it a part of our day, then it won't seem like it's as much work. And that's in the bad times. Mm-hmm. People have a lot of challenge in the good times. Recently, I've had to evolve my career, and I've had to leave what was the best office, the best people I've ever worked with, the best leader I've ever worked with. And so it was really hard to evolve out of that. Mm-hmm. And to create almost like a natural pressure to say, why do I have to make a move? And it's really because it was time to evolve, to use new skills that I was developing. And again, that's about keeping the network strong of people that are pushing and pulling you forward. You know, I often talk about your personal board of directors and that you need people who are saying, why aren't you evolving? Where are you going now? Mm-hmm. And even young professionals saying, you know what, we need people to be moving up the career path so that we can advance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I was told by a boss I had a number of years ago is that unless you can find someone to replace you in your current job, you can't move on to the next one. Mm-hmm. And that was really enlightening because normally people are concerned about their current job and they want to be the only ones who can do it because they feel that brings value. But no, the value comes from when you were able to leave that job and move on to something else.
And you shared that with me actually a couple of years ago. That led to me feeling more comfortable about leaving a good situation by actually going out on my own, not leaving it to HR or recruiters, and finding somebody in my community who would be a good successor and training them and teaching them and saying, you know, who knows if it'll work out or not, but I know I've done my best if I really care about the team I work for to give somebody the skills and network that I've built up while I'm here, as opposed to making it a very cold transition. I want it to be as warm as possible.
Now, change in a career can also be something that creates fear. Are there techniques that people can use to get over that?
It's something I've had to go through in the past probably 6 or 7 months. And you know, we talked about this as part of Seth Godin's Krypton College, which you wonderfully enough jumped in as a leader and you led our group. We talked a lot about that fear that I was facing, about what are the challenges to moving. to not just evolving jobs, but the career thing, being someone you've never been before.
Mm-hmm.
And then the physical as well. Now I'm a little older, I've started a family, you care about finances, and those things, they really matter. You have people
Mm-hmm.
depending on you. And so how to overcome those areas of fear was about working together as a group, creating safe spaces where you can talk about it. My fears were so irrational, but I didn't understand that until I spoke them out loud.
Okay.
You know, when I did that in our group, it really helped that fear to become physical, for me to see it and say, that monster doesn't scare me as much when it's out in the real world.
Okay.
And
Was
so
there
having people to help you through that.
okay. Was there a particular fear that was bothering you?
It was, and I said it many times in our group. It was about, what do I do if I do this wrong, and then I'm unemployed and I have a family and I don't want them to be in danger financially.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, I'm someone who has a very strong network and people know me. I'm established in my community. It's a fear I shouldn't have as strongly, but it's always a fear you have as a parent. So how did I
Mm-hmm.
get over that? And the team suggested different ways I think about it. I mentioned the book that I was reading by Chip and Dan Heath called Decisive,
Right.
that talks about how to build a plan that makes you more comfortable and take away that fear, which is things like having a strong backup plan, or how do you make sure that you're showing that you're making progress in the plan, so that you don't feel like you're either falling behind or things aren't moving at the pace you want them to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things that's really impressed me about you over the years that we've known each other, which I think is maybe 4, maybe close to 5, is that you're one of the few people who evolves. And so we all face challenges, but not many people will do anything to get beyond them. And it's really great to see how you've conquered your fears. Now, one of the other things you talk about is work as art. Do you want to describe that and how that ties in with evolving a career?
This is one of the places where we originally met and formed a bond around this great author, Seth Godin, and the tribe that he's created in the world about people who believe that their work is something more than just assembly line building things. And he put this idea out there that work needs to be art. You need to be thinking about it as that. But if it's not right now, how do you maybe take that offside and create that art somewhere else in the universe? And so I really encourage people to say, what are you doing right now in your job? What are the things you want to be doing? And go outside and do them. So for the past couple of years, you and I were people that were using things like blogs and digital media, experimenting in the professional world using social media, where a lot of people weren't doing that. And by creating that art outside of our job, very often that was moved into my work because people saw me build it and say, what is that? We know you do that. We want that. Bring it into the office.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do more of that, creating things for love and thinking of work as art, how do you be the best in the world at something because you love it?
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, people will actually pay you for it. And I've helped dozens of people experiment with that, and now all of them are paid to do what they never thought anybody would pay them to do.
Right. Before I started my actuarial career, I wrote a letter to the Society of Actuaries asking for advice, and I got a response back saying, find something that you would do for free, and then find someone who will pay you for doing that. And that, in a sense, I didn't think about it until now in terms of art, but there's something to it, because if you do it for free, because art is something that comes from within you, then how can you have any competition? Because other people are just doing it for money.
And then, funny enough, that's how people introduce you in other parts of our lives. When I'm in other places and people are introducing you in the business world. So a lot of my network contacts introduce you as someone who is a catalyst for others in their life and in their career. But my business contacts who know you introduce you as the only actuary with imagination I've ever met.
Oh, I haven't heard it said that way.
Well, that's what they, that's really impressed me. So they said, I know a lot of people that deal with numbers and are in this insurance world, but to have someone that understands how life works, how business works, and how to guide a client and a colleague through that is something that is very unique. And it's because you built that art outside of your actuarial world, and it totally bled into your business. And now it's actually how people know you as somebody who understands business and life, helps them get to where they need to go, but it's realistic. But it's also beautiful and magical at the same time.
Yeah, I think what helped me is back in 2007, I started blogging. And that was also the same year I discovered Seth Godin. And I didn't really know why I was blogging, but then he explained in a way that I could understand. But basically, if you look at his model, he shares the best of what he knows for free. And then good things happen. And when you're blogging or podcasting or doing interviews, then you're sharing your best. Because if you hold anything back, people will just click away. And when you start sharing your best, somehow people can sense that. And that starts attracting things to you. And I've seen the same in what you've been doing, because when I go to your networking events, I don't know how you manage to organize so many. There's a positivity there, and there's an attraction. There's something magical.
And you know, it's just about creating. He talks about creating those spaces that are the opposite of what everybody else is like. And you know, our offices, our work can often be like that assembly line. And whenever I design a networking event, I just think, what is the most anti-conference, you know, anti-association? I love my associations, and the conferences are needed, but we need some things that are different to be out there in the world. And because I can be small and nimble, I said, let's create things that are different in that space, because we need to have both. We need to have the very strong and structured and the professional, but we talk a lot about this magic, this connection. In great business development, that's how it's done. It's being open to possibility.
Now, you're a master of social media also. Where does that fit into the career evolution process?
I believe so strongly in social media for professionals. So people know me as a bit of a digital evangelist, but I tell them there's two things we're not talking about. We're not talking about social as part of a business marketing plan, because that's for small business or organizations to do, and that's usually only in the hands of the communication department, etc. And I'm not talking about social. I'm not talking about Instagramming lunch or whatever thing you're doing in the evening. I'm talking about it as your professional life and as part of who you are as a professional. So some people use the title personal branding. It's just about representing yourself the best way possible. For someone to do business with you, all they have to know is who you are, what you do, and where to find you. And that's what social media is about. They find out who you are on LinkedIn. They find out what you do as you interact with people or as you teach through things like blogs and videos. And they know where to find you through, yes, things like LinkedIn, etc., but they know where to find you right now through things like Twitter. To have open conversations. Now I get to have open conversations with journalists and thinkers, professors and authors. And to have that open conversation instantly is really powerful. And for business people, it's going to be more important than ever.
Okay, now do you find that professionals are good at using social media?
Some are, very few are. I mean, we're talking about less than 5% still. And social media has been around for 10 years.
And it's free.
And it's free, and it's all out there. The challenge is it's something different, it's risky, it's authentic, it's open. And that scares a lot of professionals who have lived in a very structured world for a long time. Especially professionals like the legal profession or finance profession who live in a world of compliance. It makes them very nervous. But I often tell them that's fine. You can navigate that by creating no new content. Do not be creative at all, because you've already got your leadership in your organizations creating great content.
Oh, good point.
So if they're making stuff already, I'm not saying make something new or say something new. Just share that content on these channels. You got a newsletter? PDF it, put it out on Twitter. You're talking about something next week at the Board of Trade? Take that and put it on a blog and share it through LinkedIn. All it is again representing yourself. You're putting all this work into promotion naturally. But instead of going to a holiday networking event and having 5-10 minute conversations, putting a blog up shares your view, shares a professional opinion, and that thing lives 24/7, 365 days a year. It's the world's greatest personal branding and personal marketing mechanism, but it's only going as far as you want it to go. So if you're an introvert, if you're not someone who likes to be out there, it doesn't have to be super proactive. All it has to be is let people know who you are and what you do.
Right. So you're saying that people can start off by curating content that is already approved if they're in a world of compliance.
Absolutely. You know, for the people who work in the professional sector, lawyers especially, so I follow and I learn a lot from the Canadian Bar Association, the Ontario Bar Association. They're very good at teaching their lawyers right now. They're holding sessions all the time about social media, is that they know that there's a ton of content already being created. Law firms now are using blogs and all these different medium. All you have to do is create that pre-approved content and share it in that social space. I mean, if you wrote it, why would you not share it in that world?
Mm-hmm. Now, as we record this, you're in the process of changing jobs. Now, do you have any rituals that you follow at this point?
There's a couple things that I've done over the past 17, 18 years of work. And that, number one, every kind of New Year's between the holiday season, I go out to a farm that my university owns, a quiet place. It's just a couple dollars to stay overnight. I get a whiteboard and I think about, career, where are things going? Am I need to be where I need to be going? And how do I get there? And do a bit of a personal strategic retreat. Who am I being of value to? Who's helped me the most this year? How do I express gratitude towards them? And then in between jobs, and it's only been 2 or 3 times in my whole career, but I always make sure to get up to that farm and have 24 hours of silence to do a bit of a reset. Who am I? Where am I going? How am I putting to rest the old position? And how am I getting into the mindset of who I need to be? This new role that I have is a national role, a collaborative role with a powerful, fascinating institution, but I need to be ready to be this new collaborator, to be outside of what has been for me a very structured office world. And now I'm in a place of serving people, free range, organic, off-road, the whole thing. It's exciting, but it's a very open, collaborative concept, and I have to be ready mentally and physically to know how to deal with it. And having this reset, this quiet space to mentally do that is very powerful.
Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of courage to sit by yourself and think about things.
When I tell people that I do this, the number one question I have is, you have the ability to sit quietly for more than 2 hours? And I said, it is, I will not lie, in a world of social media, we've all developed obsessive compulsive disorder. It's good to shut everything off. I don't even take my devices with me, to be in a world of silence and thoughtfulness. Some people call it meditation. For me, it's because I need to be moving. It's just walking alone in a forest and saying, how am I ready? Am I ready to be who I need to be? And what are the tools I need to bring to the table this time?
Congratulations on your new role at Canada Helps, Paul. Now, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
LinkedIn would probably be the best way. I always tell people that they can see kind of what I offer and who I am there. Best way to get in touch with me is probably through LinkedIn.
Okay, thanks for visiting us.
Great. Thank you for having me promote.
Thanks for joining us for Tea at Taxevity. The Taxevity Insurance Advisory helps you understand insurance and bridges gaps in your coverage. There's no premium for peace of mind. How healthy is your insurance?